what I got in my hands. This EM1X. Isn't that nice? Hey, look over here. We got some Olympus bling. I'm definitely going to pick up some of this stuff. I'm going to try and do a little bit of street photography too while I'm at it. I'm not in the busiest part of town, but I think something could happen. I don't know why I'm so excited about this launch, because I'm not really planning on buying this camera. You know, it's just not the right camera for me. But still, I'm excited to be here, if that makes any sense. Looking at this building, it's really nice, but it turns out it's George Mason University. Now you know where all your tuition money's going. It's like these amazing structures in the heart of downtown Arlington, where it's like really a high rent district. But I think I can get a nice shot of this. I didn't really see a very good shot from across the street, so I thought I would get up closer. So I'm just walking around looking for any kind of composition that might catch my eye here. They have a lot of lines and angles that I gotta try and make work, but I really like the lighting coming out of the building. Do you guys see anything yet? I see a little bit up here, the way the lights are going deep into the building, giving the building some kind of depth. But then I don't like all of the foreground. So let's just keep looking. I might have to get a lot closer and get a weird perspective on it. What if I go front and center? Not really. Actually, I kind of like that. I got my two corners here and here, going all the way to that corner with nothing but lights here, and then down here. Let's try this. I think what I'll do is I need to go back to the car and get the tripod, because the lighting has really dropped. You know, the sun set about an hour ago, and I noticed that I'm shooting and my ISOs are hitting like 800, and I really don't like to go above 100 or 200 at night with this camera unless I have to, and I don't have to tonight, so that's what I'm going to do. This is the FDIC, or Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So it's kind of a big deal. I thought it'd be bigger. Alright, so the EM1X launch event is about to start in about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go back to the camera store and see what there is to see. Alright, so the event ended last night, and I was a little bit too tired after it was over to kind of wrap things up before I left, so I'm just going to take a couple of minutes now to talk about it. But, you know, the EM1X is a nice camera, and, you know, the size and weight of it, the bulkiness, it really didn't feel that bulky when I had it in my hand. And the only way I can explain it is kind of like when the EM1 Mark II came out. It had a little bigger grip than the EM1 Mark I, and that was really about it, just a little bigger grip. And that's kind of like the EM1X. It has a little bigger grip than the EM1 Mark II, but it has two of them, right? One here and then one vertical. Because the actual camera, the body itself, this part here and all of this, was pretty much the same size. So it felt just like the EM1 Mark II, but just had a little bigger grip here, and then of course the vertical grip. And so when I had it in my hand, it really didn't feel like a big camera. And I think it's going to really be feel really good when you have a long lens on it, like the 300mm f4 or that upcoming 150-400. So putting the slightly bigger grip on it, you know, vertical and the normal grip, kind of makes sense in the same way that, like this 12-40 Pro lens, I never use this lens on my Pen F or EM10 Mark II because it's just kind of bulky and heavy on those cameras. But on my EM1 Mark II, it's really a perfect match. It doesn't feel heavy or bulky or awkward at all on this camera because of the grip. So that EM1X, I think they've designed primarily for people that are going to be using that 300 millimeter or that 150 to 400 or the 75 to or 70 to 150, you know, all the bigger, heavier lenses. That grip being, you know, vertical and horizontal is gonna, it's really gonna feel good, and it's not, the camera's not gonna feel heavy or bulky at all in those circumstances. So it kind of makes sense, and I understand where this camera is. It's really an additional camera. It's not their flagship camera, so to speak. It's really just a different camera, and I feel like if that camera came out at about the same time as the EM1 Mark II, it wouldn't be getting so much flack like it is now about being big, heavy, and bulky. It would have looked like, for what it is, just a different kind of camera. Just like when you go to a car dealership, they got different sized cars, right? They have compacts and they got SUVs. So, but the fact that it came out this year, I think just sort of exaggerated the size and weight of the camera, and you know, that Olympus is going in the wrong direction, etc. And they're not really. They're just introducing, I think, a different kind of camera. Now, it's not a camera for me because I'm not like a sports action wildlife shooter, but it does make sense to me after holding it for people that are using those longer lenses, because I can relate in a smaller way with this 12-40 Pro using this lens on this body versus my EM10 or my Pen F. Now, that being said, you know, why would you get that camera over, say, the EM1 Mark II if you can just buy a vertical grip for this camera? So I tried a couple of things, like I was trying the autofocus and the image stabilization, and those two things are definitely next level. I mean, I was walking back and forth as fast as I can while I was tracking a picture of a car they had there, and man, that thing nailed it. I'd say only 1 or 2 shots out of 100, 200 shots that I took were maybe slightly out of focus. But for the most part, the focus was amazing. And in video, the autofocus was also amazing. But for video, I didn't really have enough time to test it, because for video, even this camera, if I only test it for 5-10 minutes, I'm gonna think this is the best video autofocus ever. Because sometimes this thing is 100% and I have no problems, but there's other times when I'm doing long takes, the focus could drift or lose me, right? And you may have seen that in my other videos when I was testing this camera. But I can tell you the autofocus was really, really impressive on that camera. The other thing that was really impressive was the image stabilization. It was definitely next level. I mean, I didn't think I would be able to tell or feel any difference between my EM1 Mark II and that camera, but I could definitely say that it felt a lot better. Because I took the camera and I was shaking it like this in video mode, right? With the 12-100 Pro lens. So it had that dual sync IS. And it was pretty impressive. You know, when I played it back on the back of the screen, you wouldn't know I was doing all this when you play it back. It was pretty rock steady. And I've seen a lot of the image stabilization tests online, the videos part, before going to the event, and I was like, well, that's okay. I didn't look that impressive, but when you actually are there and can do it yourself and see how steady that stabilization is, it's pretty impressive. It was definitely better than this camera. And on paper, you know, they say from 6 to 7 or 7.5 stops. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at it from this point of view, 6 to 7 stops of light is twice as much light. So you could almost say it's the image stabilization has to be twice as good. So I wouldn't say it was twice as good, but it was pretty solid. So those two things really impressed me. And then it had the other things in there, you know, that the cameras, you know, they're bragging about, is like the handheld high-res shot mode. And, you know, that to me is kind of an aside. because it's kind of like a live composite, right? You don't buy the camera because it has a handheld high-res shot mode. It's really nice to have, and that Olympus includes those things like live composite and high-res shot mode, handheld. But those are not reasons to buy the camera. I think if you're an EM1 Mark II owner using a dual grip all the time, I think the autofocus and the image stabilization are the two things you really need to consider before upgrading, because those things were pretty impressive. And if you want to stay in the Micro Four Thirds system. So those are my feelings on it. Let me know what you guys think. You know, like I said, it didn't really feel that big and heavy when I was there holding it. It's a little bit different when you're holding it, just like when I'm holding this camera. You know, with this lens and this camera, it weighs like 800 or 900 grams compared to my EM10 Mark II with a kid lens, right? Is only about 500 grams. So this feels, but this feels perfectly fine. It doesn't feel heavy or bulky at all. And EM1X with the dual grip is not going to feel heavy or bulky at all, I don't think, when you're using it with those long lenses. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You know, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You know, is this a camera you might still consider? Knowing that the autofocus is going to be much better and that the image stabilization is going to be much better than your EM1 Mark II. I'm curious because it wasn't enough for me because I don't want to carry a double grip camera, but if you're already an EM1 Mark II owner with a double grip, you might want to consider that. You know, give that some thought, let me know. But either way, I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.